What's up, YouTubers? So before we get started with this video, on Max Unboxing, he's going to be talking about a few different topics about boxing. He's also going to be talking about what if Floyd Mayweather and Tommy Hearns were to meet up in their prime and fight. So let's see what he has to say about that.
Welcome back to Max Unboxing. Now time for Max Me Anything. Your questions, my answers. One round. Ring that bell. JPK Mets wants to know, how long will the bubble last on way past their prime boxers drawing large pay-per-view buys? To adapt/steal from Larry Merchant, we've all done that. If Marco Antonio Barrera loved me as much as I love him, we'd be married. But I can't pay money to watch the baby-faced assassin do an exhibition. Then don't. But I have a feeling most of the people who paid money to watch Roy Jones and Mike Tyson fight their exhibition left happy and would pay for a rematch or pay for another one that appealed to them. I know I would. And so I don't know that this is a bubble so much as this is a new kind of business model that may be with us for the foreseeable future. Nate.
So I would definitely repay to see Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight again. There's also a couple other guys I'd like to see fight. Maybe Lennox Lewis and David Tua. That'd be a good rematch. Maybe Mike Tyson versus David Tua. I always want to see Mike Tyson and David Tua fight. Because I remember back in the day, David Tua was supposed to be like the next Mike Tyson, but things just never worked out. Also, maybe Shane Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya. So Oscar De La Hoya has a few things going on right now, but if he can get his act together, that he can definitely make a good fight with Shane Mosley again. Maybe Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather. That'd be a good rematch. So there's a lot of older retired fighters that I would love to see fight against each other in their age range. You can also throw in Bernard Hopkins. I like to see him fight again. Evander Holyfield. There's a couple of guys I wouldn't mind seeing fighting. Marcos Madonna, I think he might still be fighting. I can't remember. Miguel Cotto. There's a lot of guys I wouldn't mind seeing fighting in their age range. I would definitely still pay for that.
Asks, will this generation ever produce a legend like the ones we've seen in the past? The answer is yes, always. Every generation frets that in the old days you had all these guys. Who do you have now? I remember as a kid, in the old days, we had Jack Johnson and Joe Louis and Jack Dempsey and Rocky Marciano and Sugar Ray Robinson. And who do you have today? And I'd be like, I don't know. I think Marvin Hagler and Alexis Arguello were pretty good. That's only two guys. Yeah, because they're comparing the history of boxing to today. So look around today. Between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence and Canelo Alvarez and a bunch of other guys, you think some of these guys won't be seen eventually the same way the legends that you're thinking of are seen? They will be. Okay.
Yeah, so definitely, I do believe that, just because guys are young today, that doesn't mean in 20, 30 years that they're not going to be legends of this generation. Terrence Crawford, Canelo, Errol Spence, all those guys are definitely going to be legends. Even, Tank, Adrian Broner. Well, some of those guys may not be legends, but they're still great fighters that in 20 or 30 years that they might want to fight against each other the same way Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight against each other. So as long as they're staying in their age range, so I wouldn't worry about there not being any legends for this era.
Teal wants to know, how would the old guys like Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston, George Foreman, how would they react to professionals fighting YouTubers? Actually, Muhammad Ali fought Inoki, the Japanese wrestler, Antonio Inoki, the Japanese wrestler, in a big exhibition. George Foreman once fought Foreman Fights 5. They were professional fighters, but it was seen as a carnival, right? No, those guys who understood showmanship would understand this stuff too. T asks.
So I don't think Muhammad Ali or George Foreman would have a problem with, boxers nowadays fighting an exhibition fight with a YouTuber. So a lot of times boxers, when they get towards the end of their career, they haven't taken care of their money as good as they should have. So they might be a little bit strapped for cash. So you can get a pretty good payday fighting against a big YouTuber. They could probably get $1 or $2 million off a fight with a big YouTuber. So I don't think Muhammad Ali or George Foreman would have a problem with, fighters nowadays, padding their nest egg for a quick cash grab with the exhibition fight against a YouTuber that they'll most likely win. So I don't think they'll have a problem with that.
Who wins, Fury versus Ngannou? Do you think these crossover fights will continue to primarily benefit the UFC or return interest to boxing long term? I don't see it as an either or. First, to answer the question, it's very simple. Tyson Fury wins if they fight in a ring. And obviously Ngannou wins if they fight in the octagon. Had Tyson Fury on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, duh, no kidding. They could fight 100 times in the ring, 100 times in the octagon. Fury wins every time in the ring, and Ngannou every time in the octagon. And if the UFC and if the boxing industry are smart, they will use these kind of matchups, even if they just remain fantasy matchups, to drive interest in both sports, in combat sports. Logan asks.
So here goes the age-old question of, who would win in a fight, a boxer or a UFC guy? And like Max said, either of those guys in their profession is going to win. If you get a boxer fighting a UFC guy in a boxing ring, the boxer's going to win and vice versa. But I will say this. If it was a street fight, my money would go on, if it was a street fight versus a boxer versus a UFC guy, my money goes for the UFC guy all day, every day. Because that UFC guy knows how to use his legs. He knows how to kick. He knows how to take someone down to the ground. He knows what to do when he gets on the ground. He knows how to ground and pound. So, there's no way a boxer is going to have a very hard time taking care of business, getting down to the ground if he's taken down to the ground by a UFC guy and is being twisted into a pretzel. He might not know what to do.
Why does it feel like Taylor Ramirez has flown completely under the radar? They still aren't even selling tickets. Well, it has so far, but not for long. I know on this show we're going to be talking a lot about it. I love that fight. It's evenly matched. It will produce a one and only undisputed junior welterweight champion, and it is going to be a war as long as it lasts. Matt asks, at 47, prime Tommy Hearns versus Floyd Jr. This is a very bad matchup for Floyd. And by the way, even if they fought in their primes in the same era, I don't think you'd have ever seen that fight because I don't think Floyd takes that fight. Tommy Hearns was 6'2". He had a 78-inch reach, and he could knock down the walls of a city with his right hand. Tommy Hearns at welterweight. By the way, Hearns has never been outboxed. He fought Sugar Ray Leonard and Wilfred Benitez. Benitez at 54. He outboxed them. No, Floyd ain't getting in with Tommy. That is a terrible matchup for Floyd. Will ask.
I don't know about that, Max. I know you're the boxing guru and everything, but I think Floyd Mayweather might have a chance against Tommy Hearns. So let's take a quick look at that. So Tommy Hearns is what, 6'1", 6'2", maybe about 160. Floyd Mayweather is about 5'7", 5'8", maybe like 150. Let's take a quick look at Tommy Hearns, one of his fights. So Tommy Hearns fought Marvin Hagler for the middleweight championship, and Marvin Hagler absolutely beat down Tommy Hearns. I mean, from the opening bell, he was beating down Tommy Hearns, and he knocked him out in the second round. I mean, at no point was Tommy Hearns winning. Marvin Hagler was absolutely killing Tommy Hearns in that fight. And Marvin Hagler is about, 5'8", 5'9", maybe 160 to like 167. So that wouldn't be that big of a stretch to say that Floyd Mayweather could probably put them hands on Tommy Hearns if Tommy Hearns were to drop down to welterweight. Because Floyd Mayweather, what he's like I said, he's 5'7", 5'8", maybe 150. So if he fought Tommy Hearns at welterweight, I know there's about a two weight class difference between middleweight and welterweight. But Tommy Hearns has been able to drop down and fight welterweight, which he could do against a Floyd Mayweather. I think Floyd Mayweather might have a chance against a larger Tommy Hearns. And Floyd Mayweather is no stranger to fighting against fighters that are bigger than him. A perfect example would be Oscar De La Hoya. Well, Oscar De La Hoya was maybe about 5'10", 5'11". Deigo Corrales was about 5'10", 5'11". So Floyd Mayweather is no stranger to fighting against larger fighters. And based on what Marvin Hagler was able to do to Tommy Hearns and absolutely beat him down, I think Floyd Mayweather might have a chance against Tommy Hearns. And again, to say that Tommy Hearns has never been outboxed, that's incorrect, because Marvin Hagler absolutely pulverized Tommy Hearns and beat him down. So Tommy Hearns has been outboxed. So, I don't know.
Why are boxers too scared to fight in MMA and always force MMA fighters to fight in boxing? It's got nothing to do with fear. It's that in boxing there are fewer restrictions on what labor can be paid. More money stays with the fighters than with the promoters. It's one of the reasons it's harder to sell the sport, because you can't control labor costs. It's another reason people want to stage these exhibitions in the boxing ring. The fighters do, because they'll make more